So we're here, another episode of Truth Be Told with Joshua Humbert.
I appreciate the invite.
Thanks for coming
Thanks
out.
for putting up with me.
No, thank you for being willing to come down and do this with us. I guess we're going to get started really quickly.
Okay.
On just some basic, get to know you kind of questions.
All right.
All right. So, first question I'll throw out, first comment I'll say is, behold.
The green and gold.
All right.
That was the easy one to get me fired up.
That was the easy one,
yeah,
right? You're ready,
yeah,
you get warmed up, right? So, talk a little bit about your experience at Norfolk State and just, like,
yeah,
what that
absolutely.
was like. You finished in what, 02 or 1?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. I think one of those things is that I came from Northern Virginia.
You're from Northern Virginia?
Yeah, I'm Northern Virginia. You know, I have roots in D.C., but, you know, my family primarily established in Northern Virginia, the Fairfax area. Then going down to Norfolk wasn't really, it's like 3.5 hours away, 3 hours away. But the university taught me so much. It actually taught me how to be myself, fold into my own skin. It taught me that, you know, to be honest, that, you know, I wasn't ready for a lot of the things that I did think I was ready for. That I know that'll come with a little bit longer into the conversation, but and then also told me a lot of the resources that I did not take advantage of that I just really wish I did, because like I could just, you know, it's one of that, you know, buyer's remorse, because you do buy an education. I am still paying on that education, actually.
For sure.
But more or less the experience was just super dope and awesome, and I can't say enough about a lot of the faculty, staff, and the people that helped usher me through, in spite of myself. And I always say that I did, I did roll myself through trouble here and there, but you know, it's a part of the journey.
I was like, I think about like when I was there, I remember like, I was a math major. Okay. And so I remember like, I dropped a math class and I didn't understand the politics. Okay. Right? So I dropped a math class that my advisor was teaching, and he just went in. He called me in the office and went in. And I think those types of things don't happen maybe at a larger institution. Yeah. But I didn't even know that was like a no-no. Right? Yeah. Like, you dropped my class. Yeah. So that's just one of the things, one of the memories that comes to mind. Another one, this should be soft pitch for you. Okay. All right. 1911.
Yeah.
You know anything about what happened in 1911? You're kind of young.
Those are my boys.
Oh yeah.
That's who I lean on the shield when I get in trouble. But yeah. Okay. Shout out to the Easy Mob on the chapter Epsilon Zeta.
All right.
But yeah, it's you know, that taught me a lot about being a man in itself and what achievement looked like, and being surrounded by other men that are there, and for the most part, you know, there to uplift you, build you. But for all the while, you know, you get an equally balanced approach to how living in this environment where you need other men and women, you know, to be a part of your pillar structure. Yeah.
How was that experience in undergrad? Like, what made you want to do it? Like,
you ain't gonna get me in trouble, man.
I'm hoping you give it a little bit of.
No. I'll say this. I think some of the things that I even look at now is, I think through, when I'm talking to younger folks, I always think back to a book, Carla Harris, Expect to Win. I think that's the book, Expect to Win. And it's really about, you know, having an idea that, you know, there's a difference between an advisor, a mentor, and a sponsor, right? A lot of people don't think, they just think that, you know, having a mentor is all they need, you know? I've sort of recreated that a lot for what I needed to go through. So I'll put a pin in that real quick and I'll break it down. But I also let people know, dealing with, you know, just the experience and, you know, the fraternity and then Norfolk State, is I always ask people, what is the last pit you've been thrown into? You know, you know, it's real easy to compete when there's no competition. It's real easy to show your talent when there is no one with a stopwatch or a clock, because there's no pressure, right? But I always ask them, you know, when's the last time you've been thrown in with the wolves? And then made it out with the incident in your life, and then next time you've been thrown in with the apes, and then figured out, you know, you come out. That's business. That's life. You know, a lot of times we're not tested anymore, and so we think we're fine. And that's a problem for me, and even the way of how people even look at what success looks like and what it means to get to the next level in life. So that's why I always tell people, like, you know, when I ask them, you know, talk to me about the last pit you've been thrown into, because everybody can win when there's an open book test. with no time.
Yeah, the error.
But you know what? You'd be amazed how many people fail at open book tests when it's timed. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like one of those things, like when you have talent and it's not tested, there's no pressure around it, there's no competition, it's really easy, you know, and I think people misunderstand what that really looks like. What type of pit have you been thrown into that really does test who you are, even at, you know, an older age, it's just starting out in your career, does not matter. You always have to find yourself into a new pit, you know, and figure out if you can come out, you know.
Interesting. So, like, what was the last pit you've been thrown into?
Sheesh. That was a good segue, dude. Don't be throwing away. I'll tell.
That's what we're here to do, man.
Yeah, this entrepreneurship pit, being understanding that it's one thing to play with it when you have a job. You know, it's one thing to sort of always pivot back and forth. Try to pick up some money here, try to pick up some money. But when you're all in, when you're all in, bro, that's a different lifestyle.
One of the reasons why I started this platform was because I realized when I was out pitching my tech startup or whatever, like, it doesn't matter what you have been through. When you're out there pitching, you got 5 minutes and 3 minutes of Q&A, and that's it. It doesn't matter if you're sleeping on the floor at home, not eating tuna and hot dogs or whatever to survive, or if this kid over here has $1 million in startup funding. Everybody's the same, right? And they don't want to hear it. All they want to hear is your business. And I think
somewhat of an equalizer, right?
It's an equalizer, but it's also sometimes not fair, right? Because, like you said earlier, if there's no competition, right? You know what I mean? So I really feel like this platform is about people who come and talk about the pitfalls that they've been in.
Share that story.
And share that story, because this is the other side that you won't get to hear in the pitch contest. You don't get to hear.
This is the codes.
Yeah, this is the code. This is the cheat code.
This is the codes. Yeah,
for sure.
I like that.
So that's kind of what we're here to do. Talk a little bit about the code. This one is a little bit. Let's segue us a little bit into what you're talking about. Philanthropy. What does that mean? In general, what does it mean to you? Why'd you get into it?
So I've always, growing up, and actually I started to learn more about philanthropy and social capital, and that is that not enough social capital is happening inside of church, right? We know Sister Johnson. You might sit on the same pew. You know everything about Sister Johnson, church profile. But you don't know Sister Johnson might be a doctor or a lawyer, engineer. And we don't share that information. It's just when people show up to church, they hear the word, and then they
disperse.
They disperse, right? But if we hold our wealth and we give more to church, and religion, why wouldn't that be our country club? In the mindset, why wouldn't that be our board of directors? In the mindset of that's your first place of networking. You do it every Sunday. And I go out on the limit. I go out actually on the edge and basically push this further. Is that we don't know enough about the people who go to church with us. We show up for the Lord, but you know what? We talking about the fellowship part. We know people in a certain profile, but we don't know them in a way of all those people have jobs. They need jobs and they have jobs. So why wouldn't we talk about what networking looks like in the church?
So, I bet you in your perfect vision, like, what does networking look like in the church?
Starts from church. If you're gonna spend every Sunday there, and I know it can't be, you know what I mean? And people say, "Oh, that's the Lord." It's not. It's the community's time as well, right? And the ideas, and I think churches need to do a better job of making sure that their members know who to lean on and who to gain advice from when it comes to social capital, because other communities do it. We just need to do a better job of understanding what our social capital is, and while we're there.
That's just wow. That's such a that's a rich topic.
I walk into church all the time, and I just see the same faces, and I see, I know their, like I said, I know their worship profile, but I just don't know their profile as when they leave. And some of that is just there's not an environment for it. And I think the church needs to do just as much to make sure there's an environment for building social capital so that we stay together and we can depend on each other and create mutually beneficial relationships than it's just a 2-hour Sunday and then we leave,
Man,
it's so loaded. I don't want no clergy coming after me.
Loaded,
but I wanted to.
But no, that's a real conversation.
I want no clergy coming after me.
I've always thought that it should be also because the churches collect, like black churches alone collect like
Yeah.
upwards of $30 billion annually, right?
What if they all deposited in the same bank? What if all the churches in that area said, you know what, we're going to make all our deposits every Sunday to one bank, black owned?
Right, like what if all the churches in DC deposited in Industrial Bank?
Yeah.
There
you go. Yeah.
It wouldn't
Talk
be
about financial wealth, financial creation. That's your social capital as a community.
But I don't know that people are associating social capital with financial capital in that way.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it, it's riddled through the Bible in so many ways, but we just turn off certain things about the way we see things, you know, and it makes it more difficult for when you start to
that's talked about.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're going to get the same pretty much. We're preaching out the same books every Sunday, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, not to beat that horse, but I'm in 100% agreement on that.
Yeah. I always get a little frustrated when having black folks detach, you know, philanthropic giving from their tithes and offerings, right? And I grew up in church. My mother is a reverend minister, and my grandmother was a pastor. And you know, there are so many ways to unpack that. I'm not even gonna get it's not even enough. But one of the things I think we don't do well is separating a bit of, you know, how philanthropy looks outside the church and how philanthropy looks inside the church, right? Because I think sometimes when you're inside the church, you don't apply your smarts all the way through, because you always think this is God's money in the first place,
right.
and X, Y, and Z. And a lot of people have given to the building fund, and that fund ain't never put a roof over anybody's, over anybody's, you know, the churches never got repaired.
As Steve Harvey said, they ain't change the doorknob.
Exactly. The idea is, and I'm saying that all, but then I recognize that churches have gotten a lot more sophisticated with their ministries. So they become nonprofits, obviously already a nonprofit, but they become programs and services that they provide that are functioning more as nonprofits, traditional nonprofits. And I love that, because the idea around that is that we can build community from financial literacy to how do you own a home to poverty to like eradicating poverty in our community. Like, there are different things that you can do within the church in order to be more philanthropic, that if you want to give your money there, but just make sure you're giving it to a bevy of different programs that actually can support the community. That actually serve the community.
And going back to what you mentioned a second ago about, like, what are the metrics associated with it, I don't know that. I think because there's so much other emotion tied to
there's
that
so much
type
more
of giving, then
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to even, if you ask me for metrics
or even question the pastor,
you're already in a bad.
Yeah, then you're already in a bad situation.
Yeah, so.
But you know, and I like Alfred Street because Pastor Wesley is always on. Hey, question, come to the meeting. You know, they have an open, transparent meeting. I love that about the way that church operates.
Is that the church?
That's Alfred Street.
What was your arc, right? Like, how did you get into this? Because you seem super passionate about it. It's coming from somewhere, right? And you already had a background with your mom and your grandmother. But, like, was there anything else that sort of led you down that path?
I just saw, well, nonprofits not being ran the right way, or run the right way. I didn't like that. But then I also knew that a lot of times that nonprofits were being operated that way is because of lack of funding.
So was it your interest in politics? Are you a political science major, right?
I love politics, but I feel like there's more politics in helping people. People don't even want to look at that, you know, the politics of helping people. And like, people don't like to look at the business of philanthropy. Everyone separates the business out of philanthropy. You know,
what is the business of philanthropy?
Oh man, you'll get fired.
Let's get cracked. Let's get cracked.
So I think there is a business where how nonprofits go about soliciting funding, how corporations want to build their CSR and what that looks like in connection, how individuals want, you know, the best for their community, but angling for, you know, upward mobility and leverage, and social capital once they get on board. Like, everyone has agendas, right? And I feel like there's a place for all of that, and I don't knock any of that. So there's really the business of that, and even the way that, you know, nonprofits show up in the way the public sector, you know, philanthropic trends educate us on how certain, you know, policy should be made around education, poverty, you know, civic action. All those things. It's an independent sector has so much of a foothold in the way that, you know, here in this country we see politics and business and just good-hearted people and doing the right thing. It's the business of philanthropy all rolled into one. But a lot of times that business of philanthropy isn't communicated to make people smarter And a lot of that sometimes is nonprofits wanting to keep, donors dumb so they don't ask the question. And I'm not knocking, but there is a lot. There's over 1.7 million nonprofits. And the same way that, we have great nonprofits, we have bad nonprofits. Same way we have good corporations, we have bad corporations. We have good individuals, we have bad individuals. But the idea is you have to be a smart giver, and what that looks like for us, it needs to make sure there is an education around that, and black folks in general, we need to educate ourselves more, because we'll be the first ones to give but not know what we're giving to when we open up the hood and kick the tires.
Yeah, but that is, in a way, I don't want to go back, but I have to bridge that, right?
Yeah.
In a way, we're being trained to do that every Sunday.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You're being trained to kind of give and be ignorant. Now, of course, there are those examples, like you say, Albert Street, where they invite you to come in and critique. But for the most part, a lot of people aren't given that opportunity to kick the tires on their giving. And if you're trained to do that in one context, right?
Yeah, and it just bleeds over.
Yeah.
Right? It does bleed over.
It's a habit.
Most people they just completely, when you try to talk to them about, that's why I got my master's in philanthropy, because I recognize it's not enough for me to ask people for money. I had to educate them along the way. I had to maneuver them to become a major gift.
Were you working in philanthropy before you?
Yeah. And I recognized, so I was raising hella money. But I recognized I wasn't educating anybody along the way either. I recognized that I was giving people the best information they should know about why they should give to that particular institution or organization, but I wasn't giving anybody any context on the right way to do it. Right? And that started to sit with me. So I recognized that I have more of a passion to make sure that the relationship is intact than the transaction. So that's why I believe in transformational giving, and I think someone can have transformational giving over the course of their lifetime if they know with a smart plan how they are giving and what they're giving to.
Let's just define that. What is transformational giving from your perspective?
So from my perspective, from an institutional perspective, it's a big gift,
right,
that transcends
upwards of millions,
upwards of millions, hundreds. I mean, and it depends on what the program and the infancy of the program, because $100,000 for $1 million program doesn't seem really big, but vice versa. But for me, transformational giving when it comes to an individual is leveraging not only your dollars, because your dollars are activism. You're like creating a motivation and
that's
activism.
Where I think we need
to amen to that.
Right.
Your dollars are activism, and then being smart about the policies and why you're giving to that organization or that cause or that movement. And then on top of that, you have the idea around how do you leverage your professional self, because a lot of people want to detach their philanthropic actions from their professional actions. I say you can't. I really believe that if you're really going to be a transformational, and this is mine, if you're going to be a transformational giver, you need to be able to leverage who you are professionally and personally, because at the end of the day, you can do things like millennials overwhelmingly volunteer through their workplace. Right? It's just something that's a part of their DNA. Companies have done a better job of incorporating philanthropy into their culture, right? Because it's more than just the perks with millennials and other, generations as well. People are starting to see that. You'll stay with a company a lot longer if the perks and they are socially conscious and you really feel
particularly
that.
Particularly on the things that you care about.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, but now I've seen in a lot of ways that a lot of nonprofits are just taking the money from these corporations and they call them partnerships. They're not partnerships. They're step and repeat banners. And then it becomes then it becomes but it's the truth. It becomes when they get up they tell the speech 2 minutes. This is who my company is, and we're so excited to be supporting this nonprofit. And then that person gets up. Then the next person gets up and shows their video. Hey, thank you so much. And then it becomes, well, how much can we logistically fit into our program for the amount of money that we accepted, and then it becomes sort of a cattle call, like a corporate cattle call, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'd rather them give it and then not give it, but I think that that's going to explode soon.
So when you started out in philanthropy, I know you worked with the Urban League. I assume you were an employee.
Boys and Girls Club,
So all those organizations, you kind of cut your teeth on the business of philanthropy, right? And then you go to graduate school, which, by the way, I've heard you mention you're only one of
7 or 8. Might be somebody else creeping in there, which is a good thing.
Right.
Yeah. We need to get more people of color inside of these leadership roles. And a lot of times a differentiator might be that you have a master's in philanthropy if you're going to be in the independent sector.
I didn't even know that you could get a master's.
Hell, I didn't even know, but then I recognized it might be worth, looking into when I was at University of Maryland when there was a PhD. He was coming in to start the program at University of Maryland. I was like, well, where did you get your degree from? If you're starting this one, it was like, well, Indiana. Well, I'm going to Indiana. I'll go to the source. And that was one of the best. Helped me see philanthropy in a whole new light.
It's interesting too, because if I'm not mistaken, in the Kappas were they not founded in Indiana? I thought the Kappas.
Oh yeah. So it was a full circle.
It was a full circle in that way. Let's shift gears a little bit. So you were an employee, right? What made you say, I'm no longer going to be an employee? I'm going to own my space, and now you become a master. You got your master's. You've done the work. How'd you make that transition? Talk about that.
So into the entrepreneurship world, I recognize that.
And to be clear, you own your own company in Humbert.
Humbert Group. It's still scary.
Okay.
I always tell people it's scary. Being able to understand, the things that you don't even know that you thought you know. And sometimes we're so used to doing things for other people that when we have to do it for ourselves, we get stupid, And I'm like, wait, I know how to do this. I've been doing it for everyone. I've been doing it at the highest level, and now I'm acting dumb when it comes to my own success and the way that I'm going to leave my own legacy. I recognize that it's not enough just to work for someone. You need to be able to work for someone. You need to be able to make sure that you have your own legacy. And I always say the freedom that I feel with that, but I understand the more responsibility as well that I feel with that, because you don't want to let down your clients. So and it became like a rocket for me. It became because I had already built up such a resume in
social
philanthropy and social capital, the academic approach to philanthropy and the practitioner approach to philanthropy. I've had that long, 15, 16, 17 years of philanthropic experience that I already had a built-in network that people saw me in this space. And once they saw that, they were like, hey, I can have more of Joshua's time, then it just skyrocketed.
So that's a really good important point, is that you had already built up.
I didn't wait to do it.
Your it's not like you were coming from some other career. You really transitioned from your employee into basically self-employed. Now you're self-employed doing this for yourself. And so some of the same clients, or did you get different clients?
No, different clients.
Different clients?
It was one of those things it became a diversification too of something I wasn't even now I am celebrities. Well, I've tapped and advised going to businesses, large corporations, and at the end of the day, I recognize that it's not enough to just grab clients now, because I already proved that I can do that. It's how do I scale and keep my sanity, right?
You're a consultancy, and typically at a consultancy, you scale by bringing in more bodies. What's your transition? Because it doesn't seem as if you are trading time for money in a Booz Allen kind of way, right? And no diss to Booz Allen, right? Right.
All the disclaimers that I'm making use.
Exactly. You know what I mean? But you're not doing that in that kind of way. I assume you're getting percentages or of giving, or however you're doing that.
No.
How does that work?
So retainers. I built
retainer. So you are doing it like a
build me like a lawyer, man.
Okay.
But you know what? I might not be the greatest consultant because I keep giving away my services for cheap.
Okay.
Because someone gets on the phone.
Don't do that.
It's not a good way. Someone sits me then.
But that's your philanthropy?
Yes, my philanthropy. Someone hits me with that whole I got this dream, I got this power that I want to just do this, and I'm like, and then the longer that I stay on the phone, the more I keep selling myself. And I'm like, man, I just gave away a whole hour of consulting services. I got to do a better job of this. And I find myself into that all the time. But I recognize one of the best joys that I've been blessed with is being accessible, right? I like to be accessible, so if you do hit me up on DM, I will respond back, 80% of the time. And I really actually feel bad when I can't. And I was thinking, Joshua, social media, don't you don't have to feel that bad. But it makes me feel some sort of way when people are reaching out and I'm not able. But then I recognize that's a reason to scale, right? So
what does scaling look like for you?
For me, it actually meant that I had to go deeper versus going wider, right? So I understood that scaling for me isn't just about finding the largest clients for, who's going to pay me the hefty retainer or advising, business advisory fee and stuff like that. It was really more or less finding the projects that meant the most for me, right? Because if I'm working really hard and obviously it's a good salary and things of that nature and it works out for my benefit, and that I'd rather go deeper into who I am and the things that I want to work on than just trying to have a whole bunch of people working for me. I've already been there, done that. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to do the whole run a huge company. Else I would have just became a VP somewhere else, right? It was more or less like I want to be able to help the people that my heart is sort of guiding me towards, and then on top of that, making business sense of where my heart is doing it in the first place, right? And sometimes there's a pull and tug,
tension, right?
But through the grace of God, I figure it out, And then I think if I always stay open that way, that I get the best diversification of people that come into my life, and then it just makes business really simple for me. I just gave you a fluff, but you know what I mean. But at the same time,
good job. It was a good mix of
it's
fluff.
It's a good fluff and business right there. I had to blend it.
I feel you.
I had to blend it. I had to learn a couple of things, even with the self-doubt, is the circle of friends that I'm creating around me. And
are they feeding
me, and they're praying for me the same way that I was seeing that Diddy joke was so powerful. But then I had to recognize within that, is there a difference between loyalty and an alliance? You know what I mean? So I think there is a difference. Yeah, I think there's a difference. So loyalty, a lot of times, it's what has a person done for you and what are you doing for that person that creates that mutually beneficial relationship. Like they're loyal to you, right? An alliance is, allegiance. Allegiance is more or less like who that person is to you and why they are that person to you, right? So it's not about what you're getting it's like that person, like you believe in them so much that it's an allegiance to who they are, their cause, their movement, their mission, right? And I think a lot of times I had to separate the loyal friends from folks who had an allegiance to me, right? Because of who I am and what I meant to them, right? And that was a little bit.
That's a different thing.
Because sometimes when you stop feeding people, their loyalties. They start getting real quiet. They don't hang out with you as much anymore. If you don't got as much time for them anymore, loyalties come and go a lot of times. But sometimes when you have allegiance, like you got to find some people who are just so ride or die. Doesn't mean you don't have a responsibility to get back to deserve their, allegiance. But at the end of the day, it's the idea of making you work harder for why people believe in you, and that you have an accountability and responsibility to, do what you do. But I recognize that I was holding a lot of people on a standard that they just weren't able to meet, and I had to recognize that when you don't, you got to protect yourself more, So and I hopefully I fleshed that out a little bit, but it's something that I've been praying on and thinking through on the way that as I gain more people that come into my universe, what does that mean? What does that look? And how do I effectively make deeper relationships with people that are meant to be there.
Bro, it's been a dope conversation.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for stopping by. Shout out to bus boys and poets
I
and
know
this
for like
DC Chatwater, right? You know what I mean? But thank you for coming out.
No,
right?
I really appreciate it. You're doing
This
some
is dope.
awesome work, and I love what you're doing at Norfolk Stadium and getting them back on track.
Yes, sir.
Whatever I can do to help,
We should definitely talk about that.
I do. I told you, got my support.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you so much for everything.
Yes, sir. That's it, man. That's a wrap.